Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Today's video I have a collection of my favorite fall decor pieces. I've been trying to hold off on posting fall decor, but obviously everybody is so ready for fall. So I figured I'd start off by sharing some of my favorite pieces, including one that I created way back on October 2016 when I first started my channel. I didn't have very many subscribers then, so I figured this is a great way to show everybody all of the stuff that I've done throughout the years. Well, my favorite stuff. But before we get into it, I do want to ask that you hit that subscribe button, because once you hit subscribe, we instantly become best friends.
We just become best friends, yup!
And please hit that notification bell, make sure that you set them to all. YouTube may or may not let you know when I post a video, but if they don't, follow me on Instagram. I always post what I'm up to, including my new videos, so let's go ahead and get started. For my first tutorial, I'm going to use two of the Dollar Tree foam pumpkins and one of the small pumpkins. I'm just going to go ahead and paint them white. Any white paint will do. And this is eventually going to be stacked, but before I stack them, I am going to write "Bless this home." I'm using a regular pencil, but if you have a Cricut or a Silhouette, you can of course use vinyl. Now this originally posted on August 17th, 2018, and I will leave all of the original links below. Now I'm going to go in with a really thin brush and some blue paint. Of course, you can use the paint of your choice, but for this I went with white and blue since the flowers that I was using was more on the blue-purple side. Now I'm going to use these Dollar Tree hydrangeas. As you can see, they're more on the purple side, but I definitely do feel like they look a little on the blue. So I'm just going to line the bottom pumpkin. I'm not going to cover the whole thing because I don't want to use a lot of the flowers, but I'm just going to work my way around with some of the petals, keeping them as flat as possible. Now I'm going to add a generous amount of glue and add my second pumpkin. You can of course use toothpicks if you like, totally up to you. And for the top, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to try and keep the flowers a little bit more on the inside so that the bottom pumpkin looks a tiny bit bigger. And then I'm going to add my smaller pumpkin on top. You can add a wreath to the bottom and add more flowers, and this is what you're left with. For the next one, I'm upcycling this wall sconce that I made back in June 28th, 2018. I'll link that below. But when I recreated this was recreated on August 26, 2018. All I did was take one of the little Dollar Tree jars and fill it with these beautiful ruby colored flowers from Dollar Tree. Just go ahead and hang that up and it totally gives it a fall look. For this one, I'm using the stove covers from Dollar Tree. Now this was originally posted September 20th, 2019. I'm going to use a smaller one. Of course, you can use the bigger one. And I'm using these dowels from Dollar Tree as well. I'm going to start gluing them to the inside, keeping about an inch of space in between. It's up to you how close or how far you want to make your spaces. Next, I'm going to take some Dollar Tree decorative nautical rope. You can use twine as well. And I'm going to glue one piece to the inside and then start intertwining it between those dowel rods so that it looks scalloped. So just go all the way around until you get to the top, or you can even cut your dowels down if you want this to be a little shorter. If you want to save some money, I recommend getting your rope from Walmart or any hardware store. It's a little cheaper and you won't have to add new rope every time you run out because they generally sell them in bigger pieces. When you get to the end, just make sure that you cover those little dowels. You can add some rope up top or a braid to make sure that they're not exposed. I left it as is because I am covering this up with mums, but I did cover the bottom with some rope. So this is what I am left with, and I absolutely love it. one is one of my oldest tutorials on my channel. It was filmed October of 2016, and with a Dollar Tree little candle holder or vase, I took some Dollar Tree lace and I just went around covering the bottom. You don't have to do this part, it's completely optional. You can leave it as is. I went outside and borrowed some twigs from nature and I put it on the inside and used some Dollar Tree potpourri for the inside so that it looks nice and pretty and it smells good. Now I'm going to take these maple leaves from Dollar Tree, which I had spray painted gold, and I'm going to start hot gluing them to random parts of my twig. I did blot on some pink to give it a pop of color, and this is what it looks like. So this next one is my favorite wreath. I went ahead and used one of the bigger wreaths, although you can use a small one from Dollar Tree, but mine was a little wonky looking. This posted September 20th, 2019, and I've made a ton of wreaths on my channel, but this one is my favorite one. I took a welcome sign from Dollar Tree, removed the base, and then added some popsicle sticks to the back just so I can put that into the wreath and be able to reuse the wreath. This way it stands up nice and straight, and I don't have to use hot glue. Next, I'm going to take a combination of Dollar Tree flowers. I really love the orangey ones, and I'm just going to start putting them in between the wreath. I'm not using hot glue for any of this, and this is actually really sturdy. This wreath stayed outside for all of the season, and none of the flowers ever came off. So now to give it some more pops of color, I'm using Dollar Tree pumpkin clips. I love these because the clips also help you not have to hot glue. I'm just clipping them into place, which also holds the flowers into place as well. And I'm going to take a little Dollar Tree pumpkin that came on another piece of decor and add it, and this is what it looks like. For this next tutorial, I'm going to be using all of these little towels from Dollar Tree and pillowcases. These are fabric pumpkins, which I posted back on August 9th, 2018. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my little towels into a circle. I'm using a pizza pan as a guide, but you can use whatever you want. By the way, one kitchen towel is enough to make 2 pumpkins, depending on the size of the circle that you use. Next, I'm going to use some upholstery thread, but you can use regular needle and thread. I'm also using an upholstery needle so that it's easier for me to work with since I'm going to go all the way around. Dollar Tree does sell a little sewing kit. Once I knot the end, I'm going to start basically making a stitch all the way around. You're going to do this until you work your way around and you're able to scrunch this up. So now when you finally get to that point where you can scrunch it up and close it up, you're going to want to fill it. You can fill it with polyfill, plastic bags, old clothes, scented beads if you want, whatever you have on hand and whatever is free. I had polyfill at the time. Before I pull my thread and close this, I do want to add some cinnamon sticks. I got these at the grocery store, but Dollar Tree does sell them in the food section, especially around fall. So I added a few of the cinnamon sticks and then I pulled my thread so that it closes up. Then I'm just going to take my needle and start sewing around to make sure that it is not coming out. Tie a knot when you're done, and this is what you're left with. For this next one, I'm using a Dollar Tree cauldron, and at the bottom it has little feet, but I thought it would be so much cuter to add these little wood caps to the end. I think that it makes it look so much cuter. I would definitely do E6000 and hot glue next time. So once I have those on, I did decide to give this a coat of Waverly paint in Pool. Of course, you can paint this whatever color you'd like. Now I'm going to take the little sunflower off of this Dollar Tree welcome sign, which I used for another tutorial, and I'm just going to glue it to the front. And this is it. I kept it as simple as possible and I put some mums on the inside. You can add a little bow if you want, which I use some Dollar Tree twine, and this is what I'm left with. For this next one, I'm using these beautiful jars from Dollar Tree. They don't come with a lid, but I'm going to use another jar from Dollar Tree to make a lid. And basically what I'm doing is I'm using one of the Dollar Tree bathroom sets, and I am just going to drill a hole in it so that I can put this up top and use it as a soap pump. I added a generous amount of E6000 to the base of my little pump and placed it on top. And then I went ahead and made sure to plug the tip with a Q-tip because I am going to spray paint this gold. I put my plastic piece back in and trimmed it down a little bit since this is really short, and this is what it looks like. So I'm just going to cover that up and I'm going to work on my little toothbrush holder, which for that I used the top of the bathroom set, and I'm going to spray paint that gold as well and then just glue it up top. This is what it looks like, and I will leave the complete tutorial below so you can see how I made everything else. So for these next tutorials, I'm going to be using these foam pumpkins from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be removing the stem. The easiest way is using an X-Acto knife because sometimes they just have a little bit too much glue. By the way, these tutorials posted on September 20th, 2018, and the second set posted on August 12th, 2019. At the time, I used some air dry modeling clay, but I heard that Dollar Tree now sells air dry modeling clay as well. Cut it down and make sure that you store the rest in a Ziploc bag. Now I'm going to make 3 different stems. Actually, I made quite a few. You're going to roll it out into a cigar shape and then point the end, and you're going to start modeling however you want. So I made a few that were curly. I made a few that were straight. Just make sure that you're modeling the bottom to fit your pumpkin so that this looks natural. So for this one, I curved the tip in just a bit. For others, I curled it a little bit more. And for some, I just kept it nice and straight. Make sure that you let them dry for 24 hours or until you can no longer pierce your nail into them, and spray paint them whatever color you'd like. Just make sure that you're letting everything dry. To paint them and make your life a little easier, just use a skewer and a piece of foam so that it dries without any fingerprint marks. This one was the easiest one. I just used some Dollar Tree Mod Podge and a mixture of glitter that I had. I mixed that together really well, and then I started to spread that on the pumpkin. It's gonna look dull at first, but then it'll look really beautiful. Once it completely dries, glue your stem, or if you want, you can add a toothpick to the stem before it dries, and then just put it in place, and look how beautiful this looks. For the next pumpkin, I painted it black, and once that was dry, I used some tissue paper. Now, I did get the tissue paper from Michael's. It is my favorite pattern to date, and I'm just going to cut it out as close to the flower as possible. Next, I'm going to spread some Dollar Tree Mod Podge, and I'm going to carefully place this on. Now, you can use some saran wrap. A few people have shared that tip with me. I obviously didn't remake these, but if I were to remake these, then I would definitely smooth it out with saran wrap. Make sure that you're putting it into those little pumpkin crevices, and when you're done, that you're covering the top with some more Mod Podge so it blends in. Wait till everything is completely dry and then add that stem that you made. Look how gorgeous this looks. It doesn't even look like a Dollar Tree pumpkin. For the next one, I followed the same steps, only I painted the pumpkin white, and I printed out this beautiful Delft pattern. Just search Delft, blue china, vintage roses. I cut them out and I started placing them on the pumpkins. So I started at the top, covering that little stem area, worked my way around. Now you want to relax the paper since it's not tissue paper. Spray the back with a little bit of water and work your way around. Seal everything in with a good coat of Mod Podge and add your stem. Look how beautiful this looks. For this next one, I'm going to use these Dollar Tree stickers, and I'm just going to start adding them to the parts of the pumpkin that actually stick out. I'm going to work my way all the way around and then cover areas that I feel look a little plain. Now I'm going to blot on some of that ballet pink, making sure that I get all of those areas where the stickers are. You can use a foam brush, whatever you have on hand. Make sure that it dries really well, and then cover it with Mod Podge. The Mod Podge really makes everything blend in. It also stops those stickers from lifting. Now add your stem and look how gorgeous this looks. For this next one, I drew little flowers everywhere using a Sharpie. Now I did cut off the top as well, but I honestly regret doing that. I should have cut off the bottom so that you don't see the mark. I'm going to use this little foam cutter, which I purchased at Walmart, and I'm basically going to take this outside to a well-ventilated area, and I'm going to start perforating the marks where the flowers are. You don't want to make the flowers too small because then it kind of just melts a little too quickly and it no longer looks like a flower. I did this all the way around until I created a beautiful pattern. And when I was done, I took it inside and painted it. Like I said, I did remove the top so I can add some lights, but I do regret not just removing the bottom. This is the color that I painted it with, and then I went ahead and just added little fairy lights from Dollar Tree to the inside so that you can actually see the fact that it is perforated, and added my stem. For this next one, I'm going to be upcycling that blue truck that I made a while ago, and with some Dollar Tree stickers, I'm going to be writing out pumpkin on the side of the truck and using a little pumpkin from one of the signs, hot gluing it, and then filling the bed with a bunch of Dollar Tree pumpkins and flowers, just making this as simple as possible, but I turned something that could be used for Christmas into something very fall and beautiful. For this next one, I'm using all of these Dollar Tree signs. Throughout all the tutorials, I kept using the little sunflowers and pumpkins that were on this. Now I'm just going to go ahead and use these pumpkins, and I'm going to start painting them. So I'm going to show the paints that I use. Basically, what I would do is I would take a dark shade, turn it a little lighter, and then use the darker shade to create the little grooves on the pumpkin, or a totally different color that was muted and a little darker, like the steel gray. And I would start making the little pumpkin perforations. I did different colors for each pumpkins, and I believe I kept the stems all the same color. Once all my colors were blended in and beautiful, I'm going to move on to making a wood piece. Now you can go ahead and use a wood plank. You can use these Dollar Tree signs and then just put them together and add popsicle sticks to the back to make one large sign. I didn't do that. I used 7 packs of these stir sticks from Dollar Tree, and this is how I put them together. I would line them up and make them as straight as possible. I used 6 stir sticks up top and 6 at the bottom. So make sure that this is nice and straight. But before you add the bottom, you're going to cut that down to the width and start gluing this so that that doesn't move when you create your bottom piece. I also went ahead and did the same to the top so that it doesn't move and so that we can cover the fact that this looks scalloped up top. So add a generous amount of glue, make sure that this dries really well, and then you can move on to doing a bottom piece in the same way. As you can see, I left a little gap so that we can add a popsicle stick right there to join the two. Now I'm going to add the shorter pieces, one where the top and bottom meet and one on the bottom of that. And I'm going to do the same thing to what is considered the bottom. And I'm going to use some screws just to basically screw this in place. I don't want the screws to go through, so I'm going to use my drill to make some pilot holes first. And then I'm going to lightly hand drill it in. So I'm going to do the same thing on both sides of that middle plank and on the top. Now I'm going to do one stir stick going across, and I'm going to leave on the screen how many of these I use. But like I said, it's 7 packs in total, and this actually ended up being really sturdy. I added a popsicle stick right there because there was a little bit of a gap, but you can leave it as is. Now you can stain it or paint it or leave it as is. I did use my Cricut for this tutorial. I'm going to leave on the screen exactly the fonts and the sizes that I used, but if you don't have a Cricut, I do have a tutorial on how you can do this without a Cricut. I will leave that in the description below. It's my laundry sign, which I basically printed sheets of paper and used chalk to transfer that. It's super easy. You don't even have to watch the tutorial. Just spread chalk on the back of your paper. I used Dollar Tree book cover as my vinyl, and then I cut it out on my Cricut. I weighted it out and then used some Dollar Tree shelf liner as transfer tape, added it to my wood piece. Make sure that it is nice and aligned before you add it on there. And then I'm going to use some white paint to blot on. You want to blot downward. You don't want to use a paintbrush. And just a reminder, I know that I did use stir sticks, but of course you can use the Dollar Tree signs, and you can also skip the Cricut and just use the chalk method to transfer whatever it is you want to write on your sign. So I went ahead and removed it and then started gluing in my pumpkins. You can glue them however you want. And just to add some more decor, I used some Dollar Tree garland, and I think this looks absolutely gorgeous. So that's it for me. I really hope that you enjoyed these Dollar Tree fall decor tutorials. I will definitely leave all the original links below. I will also leave my playlist below because there's some that I just skipped over, but I really hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. Let me know which one is your favorite, which one you'll be recreating, and I will hopefully see you on the next one.